Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3616. Today's date is September 30, 2025. It's been almost like a night at 10:37 p.m. Lately, I'm not actually recording Artifact that much. Yesterday, I won't really record Artifact. Uh, it's been a couple of days. I was kind of like only quite and busy, and yeah, because the task that I decided that I should supposed to be do every single day, I'm not performing that task. Like basically is this thing that ki, since I wake up in the morning, I have to be record artifact. Then I read a book. Then I have to be kind of like a spend 1 hour of app development courses. Spend 1 hour on Brilliant. Spend 1 hour on Lumosity. Spend couple of minutes on couple of like a basically micro learning on Duolingo. Okay, these are kind of like a simply one of the necessary, and then I will focus on content creation. Okay, yeah. And after all those things, I went to work out, had a dinner, record artifact. I call this thing is a kind of like a only very productive day. Okay, yeah. But from last couple of days, I was like quite and busy. Okay, yeah, busy regarding about stuff and another thing is that my content creation. Okay, yeah, like basically it's this thing that I make sure that I should supposed to be upload my content every single day, and I'm kind of like a simply being consistent for almost like a year, like more than a year. Yeah. So I don't want to break this consistency. Okay, yeah. Now the problem is that usually like for this particular making this consistency, I follow the one rule. What is that rule? A rule is that I should have kind of like a simply pre-advanced content that I already uploaded on social media platform, which is on schedule. Okay, yeah. What exactly it means? It means that if I create the content, then that content should supposed to be went public after the fourth day. Okay, that means third day, that means today, tomorrow, and day after tomorrow are packed by previous kind of like a content that I already created. So basically is this thing, I kind of like a simply create content in advance. Okay, so that I am not really feel that much rush, and kind of like a something feel that a breathing space that I get. Okay, yeah. And I'm kind of like a maintain this consistency. Now problem is that because of like a couple of days, I don't really have time to not only kind of like a content creation. Like basically content creation is one of the essential thing. I don't want to kind of like a simply pause and things like that. So that's why I'm literally focus on that. But the problem is that there are some sort of kind of like a simply like a work and things, so that's why I just can't really focus on that, or can't really like I don't really have time. Like basically most of the time I is actually consumed by some other stuff. Okay, and that is kind of like a something that I don't want. Okay, so because of this thing, because of like I don't really have time and things and that, I am not really uploading my content in advance. Okay, let me tell you one thing. Today I already uploaded content. Tomorrow I don't really have any content, nothing really at all. Okay, yeah. It's been almost like a 10:30 p.m. I'm really tired. Okay, and today was also really hectic day. Like today what exactly happened that today I wake up in the morning, haven't really record artifact. Okay, yeah. Straight into the kind of like a content creation. Okay, yeah. I kind of like a create my design, create my content. Okay, yeah. My plan is that till the kind of like a something 1 p.m. I have to be complete my content, but unfortunately it didn't really happen because the content is kind of like a bit messy and things and that. So yeah, okay. But I already made the design. Okay, just reel is actually remaining. Okay, yeah. But like basically I have to be go to Nagpur with my sister. She has a kind of like an exam at Nagpur city. Okay, yeah. So I went with her. So basically is this thing, I haven't like basically at 1 p.m. to right now, I haven't really done anything at all. I was kind of like assembly just travel and things and that. Right now I'm came here, right now I'm recording artifact, and I don't really think that I have kind of like a little bit energy to kind of like sit in front of my desk and kind of like do the work. No, nothing really at all. Okay, yeah. I just only have kind of like energy to record artifact, and I just want to sleep. That's it. Okay. So this is the end of today. Okay. Now tomorrow is a big problem. Because of tomorrow I didn't really have piece of content. So firstly I have to be focused on content creation. Okay, yeah. So if I'm literally focused on content creation, so that means I will not gonna record artifact in the morning. I will not gonna read my book. I will not gonna do app development courses. I'm not gonna do any kind of like a Brilliant or Lumosity or Duolingo, nothing really at all. My entire focus will kind of like a focus on content creation. Tomorrow I have planned that at least two piece of content should supposed to be done. Okay, one is somewhat something 50% done, and next up the kind of like a content should supposed to be done till the end of tomorrow. Okay, yeah. Okay, two piece of content. Then after that, um, next day I have to be done two piece of content. Okay, yeah. So if I create two piece of content tomorrow and day after tomorrow, that means four piece of content, and I'm actually uploading those content on social media. So I will have kind of like a 3 days of gap. Okay, 3 days of kind of like a advanced uploading. Okay, but how is that thing happen? Like basically is this thing, tomorrow I'm kind of like a creating two piece of content na. So one piece of content is actually uploaded for tomorrow and another is day after tomorrow. Okay, yeah. Now day after tomorrow I kind of like a make a two design which is kind of like upload on kind of like a assembly day after like basically, like do you get it na? It's been almost like I'm getting kind of like assembly lead in advance uploading. Okay, at least 3 days of kind of like assembly advance kind of like assembly advance content creation upload on social media platforms. So I will maintain the kind of a consistency and things like that. Okay, yeah. So tomorrow I might not gonna record artifact in the morning, or maybe I will like basically is this thing, at least I could spend almost like half an hour to record artifact, because artifact is a like it's good, it's okay, yeah. Okay, so tomorrow and day after tomorrow I might not gonna do any kind of like assembly app development, nothing really at all. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of like assembly entire day and routine and things like that. All right, so should we jump into the question? Let's go. I'm really tired but still. Okay, what if AI govern the global decision? Oh, that is really good question. Okay, yeah. Okay, first of all, what is exactly is this question and why am I asking this question? Okay, this is the what if question. Okay, yeah. Am I asking this question for myself to kind of like understand the concept, and also like when I talk about what if question, when I give the answer what if answer, it kind of like a force me to think from that point of perspective, from the question point of perspective. Uh, Obviously answer depends on how much knowledge that I have, or how much knowledge that I have, or how much detailed knowledge that I have. The detailed knowledge that I have, I will kind of like explain this topic very much kind of like something in too much detail and things like that. This question like a, it's not kind of like an ordinary question that you have to give the answer and things like that. It's a kind of like a simply, this question is actually force you to think that what will gonna happen, kind of like a creating that reality. So this is really good. I love giving the answer what if questions. Okay, yeah. Also, yeah, the stuff that I will gonna mention in the in this artifact, in this regarding about question and answer, like whatever the answer that I will gonna provide, this answer is not exactly right either, or it's not exactly wrong either too. It's a kind of like a somebody that whatever I know at the moment, I'm kind of like a somebody telling this thing. Okay, yeah. Like basically this is thing now what exactly happened. Today I was kind of like a somebody watching kind of like a somebody couple of videos. Like I usually watch Dhruv Rathi videos and bunch of kind of like a somebody educational video on YouTube platform. And I watch a kind of like a video regarding about DNA and things like that. Now then that particular person kind of like mentioned the mitochondria and things like that. Well, when I knew about that thing, like basically this thing na, like a couple of days ago I was kind of like asking this question that ki, what if we could kind of like simply change our DNA and things and that, so what would be that, like I actually asked this question to myself. Okay, yeah. And I give the answer as that ki, like basically DNA is a kind of like a building blocks, and kind of like a whatever you are, like a what kind of like a color, nail, hair thickness and things, everything is actually mentioned in the DNA. Okay, yeah, that is completely wrong. It's a kind of like only mitochondria and things like that, but still I kind of like realized that how wrong I was and kind of like how much confident that I'm kind of like explaining this thing, whatever. I realized that ki, this kind of like some the information that I told you is completely false and things like that. And I realized that ki, when I give this kind of like answer, what if answer, the answer is not properly right. Okay, yeah, or is not properly wrong either too. It's a kind of like a simply just consider this question is a kind of like a simply a net practice. Like basically imagine as a kind of like a somebody you wanted to be a dancer, but you are kind of like a somebody wanted to do a dance, but you don't really have a stage. This is kind of like an artifact is kind of like a giving you a empty auditorium that you can perform the dance. No one is kind of like a looking at you, no one is actually judging at you. You can kind of like simply do whatever you dance, even if you miss the some sort of steps or things or that, but it kind of like a gives you little bit confidence to a dance. Okay, this is what kind of like a artifact is. It's kind of like a somebody, it's no one is actually judging this thing, no one is actually listening to this thing, by the way. Okay, yeah. It's a kind of like a somebody empty auditorium that I just kind of like a give, I just kind of like a somebody do the practice, a net practice regarding about whatever the stuff that I want to say without having judges and things and that and that. Okay. Okay. Now, question is, what if government is actually run by AI? Then what would gonna happen? Okay, yeah. Well, when the government is actually run by AI, then what will gonna happen? Okay, let me tell you one thing. Okay, how does government run? Okay, yeah. I'm belong to India, so I'm kind of like a try to tell you how does Indian government work. Okay, yeah. So basically, this thing, we have parliament, we have constitution, we have prime minister, president, we have bunch of kind of like a small minister, we have bunch of kind of like a small systems, democrats, diplomats, everything are actually combined together to run the company, sorry, run this government, run this country. Okay, yeah. It's not kind of like a only one person job. Like basically it's a kind of like a combination of multiple person, also organization, parliament and constitution, all those things are gathered together to kind of like simply run this country. Okay, yeah. But is this kind of like simply why this is kind of like so much complicated, like you just running the country now, why this kind of like simply so much complicated? Well, it's not really that complicated to do, but it's kind of like a things that na, ki when you run the company, sorry, when you run the country, sorry, when you run the country, you have to be kind of like a focus on multiple things. Like a billions of people actually living in India, so you have to be think about every people point of perspective. You have to think about the freedom, rights, kind of like a simply that ki everything na. The country is not meant to be kind of like a simply dictates and one person rule the everything. No, we are like India is a free country and kind of like a simply everyone has opportunity to grow and things like that. And as a kind of like a government responsible for that particular person get that particular opportunity to grow in his life and things, and it will gonna add value to the country and things like that. So running a country is like a very big thing, dude. It's not kind of like a simply happen just one particular person, nothing really at all. But there is a one thing that can handle everything, and that is called AI, artificial intelligence. Okay, yeah. But how does kind of like some AI will kind of like run everything? Like basically is this thing na, the people who run the country, those people are really highly, extremely, very talented and very like basically it is like basically as compared to the people who actually run the company, they are not just a smart, they are wealthy, they are kind of like experienced, they are everything. How does everything can beat by AI? Well, AI is a kind of like a very different thing. Okay, let's just imagine a scenario that Indian government is actually run by the AI. No parliament, no constitution, no prime minister, president, nothing really at all. Just a one supercomputer. So how this reality would be that? Now, if I ask this question, now most of people are kind of like started thinking like a imagination point of perspective that Terminator thing happened. Okay, yeah, like basically Terminator is a movie, by the way. In that particular movie, the machine, the artificial intelligence is actually control the rest of the world and things and that and that. Oh yeah, so we are actually started thinking like that. But since we know what is actually AI and things like that, this will not gonna happen. By the way, let me tell you one thing. Worst thing will definitely gonna happen. Okay, yeah. But still, okay, yeah. Let's just imagine what if kind of like simply the government will run by the AI. First of all, is that key AI is a kind of like a really good at communication. Okay, yeah. But we also are really good at communication. No, we are not really good at communication. Okay, yeah. Human species are kind of like a simply like like human species are kind of like a somebody so much fragile regarding about communication. Like every other species could talk, could communicate with each other so nicely and so well, but humans are not. Why? Because like basically is this thing that humans have developed the communication skills. Yeah, we could talk, you could like basically I'm kind of like a talking, you are kind of like a listening, we are also communicating and things like that. But still is this thing that the way that we tell and the way that we execute, the way that we execute is completely different. Like basically it's this thing now. Have you ever noticed that some people kind of like us mention so many good things that I will gonna do this thing, I will gonna do this thing, do that, do that, do that, but in reality they are not doing anything at all. So what is exactly that? That is called false, kind of like a false commitment or things like that. Okay, yeah. And this is not kind of like only happened by one person, it happened by the everyone. Like basically is this thing false commitment is not only done by the normal person, it kind of like a done by the politician, a bigger politician. Like basically bigger politician kind of like a say this thing that the good things will come, but there is not. So basically there is a false commitment, right? Yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing regarding about communication, humans are really not good at communication. Okay, yeah. And I'm just kind of like a try to tell you only one simple example. There are so many things. Like basically, if I wanted to try to explain some sort of thing to some sort of person, some person might not understand that well, or some person kind of like understand little bit. Okay, yeah. Like basically, is this thing that uh, there are so many kind of like a simply magical thing is actually happened in history. So many magical things, like basically let's just take a kind of like a simply Hindu scriptures. Okay, yeah. Called Ramayan. In the Ramayan, Hanuman is a kind of like a simply god of strength. He's a Hindu god, by the way. When basically Lakshman is a kind of like a friend, is actually injured by the war and things like that, and Hanuman has a kind of like a job to find that particular medicine in particular mountain. Oh yeah. But because of Hanuman is not really understand what is actually that medicine or things like that, so what is actually happened that Hanuman kind of like a somebody kind of like a he is power of strength, like he is a god of strength na. So he just lifted the entire mountain. Okay, yeah. And kind of like a travel across the sea and kind of like a somebody went towards the Lakshman and kind of like a say, okay, like I don't know the plant what is actually medicine, but I kind of like a bring the entire mountain, so you just have to figure it out which one is it and kind of like that. Now this is kind of like a somebody like I don't know, like I'm explain this thing very much not really in detail, but in the Ramayana context, in the Ramayana textbooks, they kind of like a mention that he, uh, God Hanuman kind of like a, simply lift up the entire mountain to kind of like a things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Now, how much that true is it? Well, definitely not true. Okay, yeah. No person will kind of like a lift up the entire mountain and things like that. Then why does this thing mention in the kind of like a some history book or things like that? Is because of kind of like a something we are human and we are try to kind of like a when we try to express some sort of emotions or story, we add some sort of kind of like a spicy things to kind of like a make this conversation little bit engaging or things like that. Okay, yeah. What is actually meaning of that? What is actually the story is actually tell us? Okay, yeah. In the kind of like a Ramayana context, okay, yeah, yes, like basically is this thing, Hanuman kind of like a lift up the entire mountain. That is not true. It means that now what is actually like basically Hanuman didn't lift up the mountain. The meaning of like this is a phrase. Okay, lifting the mountain is a phrase. It's not kind of like a sorry lift up the entire mountain. It's a phrase. Phrase means like that कि मैंने पूरा पहाड़ उठा लिया या हनुमान लिफ्ट अप द एंटायर माउंटेन. दैट मीन्स he put lot of effort to find that medicine, lot of effort to find that medicine. That effort is kind of like equivalent to the lift up the entire mountain. Okay, so this is what it is. This is, do you understand this thing? Like basically is this thing now, the Hanuman is kind of like a put so much effort to find that medicine, which that effort is kind of like equivalent to the lifting the entire mountain and things like that. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing a normal day of conversation, if people gonna mention to another people that ki Hanuman kind of like a put lot of effort to kind of like a find that medicine, which is kind of like a, that effort is equivalent to the weight of the mountain. So instead of saying this thing, what if we could say Hanuman lift up the entire mountain? So when we say some sort of that, the entire sentence is kind of like a suddenly became something very spicy, very kind of like engaging. People I love to hear and things like that. Now this is called kind of like a suddenly false assumption or false thing. Okay, yeah. And this is what kind of like a assembly that humans are not really good at communication. Like we have kind of like a mouth, we can communicate, but still the way that we communicate is very less as compared to others another species. Let's just say that ki every species has a kind of like a simply very less kind of like a organ to communicate. Okay, let's take an example as a dolphin. Dolphin doesn't really have that many things to communicate. Okay, and by the way, their tongues is not meant to be kind of like a simply the bend that way so that they would kind of like a communicate and things like that the way that we could. Okay, yeah. But still the way that dolphins are communicate with each other in such a way that very extremely amazing, that crazy. Okay, yeah. Anything like a basically every species could communicate with each other so well, really much more better way. Humans are not really good in communication. Okay, yeah. In another hand, AI is really good at communication. Really good at communication. Like basically million times better than. Okay, yeah. Okay, but what exactly it means? Okay, yeah. Like basically, okay, like let's just take okay that the AI is really good at communication. So how does it kind of like something have a kind of like a value to run the entire country and things like that? Okay, let me give you the context. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing, if I'm kind of like a simply mention that key let's just take a there are 100 people. Okay, yeah. Now 100 people are kind of like a simply I will kind of like a give job to everyone that key there is a kind of like a simply stuff that I would kind of like a simply mention. Okay, let's just take kind of like a I would kind of like a simply give the paragraph. Okay, yeah. To a one person. Okay, like basically paragraph means like that. What exactly is this thing? I kind of like simply mention that key, let's just say a paragraph regarding about the Thomas Edison. Okay, yeah. Like basically I would mention that Thomas Edison is actually born this and that. he actually kind of like invented the light bulb, and he actually kind of like simply figure it out this tungsten element by the kind of like some failures of thousands of times and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So basically I kind of like simply give the paragraph to one person. Okay, paragraph means like that I didn't give the paragraph as a written. No, I kind of like give them is a kind of like a split by word, by word. Okay, yeah. Now I have to give this kind of like a, like there is a job that you have to be kind of like a share this detail to the each person. Okay, each person. Now basically one person share this detail to the another person, the second person will gonna share this detail to third person to fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 200. Okay, yeah. Now just imagine. Okay, yeah, what is exactly the 100% would kind of like a assembly information that he get, what kind of like assembly information that he get, probably not exactly right now. Okay, like basically I mentioned that ki Thomas Edison born this way, like basically what kind of like a filament that he did, things and that. Okay, yeah. But when the 100%, like basically when the 100% is actually get the information that I told and the kind of like a information that he get is a completely different. Like maybe kind of like a somewhat something maybe 25% similar, but 75% is completely distorted. And this is called kind of like a lack of communication. By the way, everything is actually happening in one single room. Okay, yeah. There is only one rule that each person will sharing this information kind of like a very secretly, that other person not gonna know, like basically in a silent or in the ear or things like that. Okay, and just only verbal things, that's it. So this is why we are kind of like a lack of really bad at communication, but AI is not. Like basically AI is kind of like a really good at communication. Okay, yeah. AI agents. Okay, if you don't really know what exactly AI agents, AI agent is a kind of like a something, is this thing, it's a mini bots of kind of like a AI, like it's a mini AI. Okay, yeah. Basically is this thing, what exactly is this thing, when they take the information and kind of like a somebody transmit this information to the another part. Okay, yeah. No, basically this thing, our human bodies exactly work like that way, na? Like basically we have neurons that kind of like simply sharing this information to the one part of body to another part of body, right? Yeah, but we are not really good at kind of like a sharing the information outside that thing. Like basically when I kind of like a sharing the this verbal information, Thomas Edison information to one person to another, my brain is not really contemplate that thing. If I kind of like a messed up that kind of like a, instead of tungsten I would kind of like a mention that the filament would be kind of like a copper filament, then rest of the people will kind of like remember that, oh, this is a copper filament, it's not tungsten filament. So this is what it is. Whatever, what I'm trying to tell you is this thing, why does AI will kind of like really good at communication is because of that AI really good at communication, and the communication is also really fast. Okay, yeah. And when the communication is actually happen fast, then kind of like a AI will determine everything. Okay, let me tell you kind of like a context. Okay, yeah. There are so many people are hungry, they don't really get the food. I'm actually talking about kind of like a some real situation is actually happening in India. Okay, yeah. There are so many people are not getting food twice in a day. There are so many food are wasted every single day. Okay, yeah. There are so many people didn't really get water to drink. There are so much amount of water is actually wasted. There are so much like there are so many people are kind of like living the life in kind of like a darkness because they don't really have electricity and things like that. But at some part of the kind of like a country are abundant of electricity, they are kind of like a wasting for like a non-essential thing and stuff like that. What I'm trying to tell you is this thing, that the resources that we have, some part of the people are kind of like using too much, and some part of the people are kind of like not getting anything. Because of AI is really good at communication, so basically AI knows that what kind of like a people really need it and what kind of like a resources that they want, they kind of like transfer that kind of like a resources to the people that they want very quickly, very efficiently as compared to humans. Because let me tell you one thing now, that key, if I kind of like somebody starving and I need a kind of like somebody bowl of rice, what would I supposed to do? I have to be like I'm really poor person. So basically is this thing, I will kind of like go into the kind of like somebody the sarkari ration. Okay, we have kind of like a some sarkari ration yojana, things like that, that even if the kind of like a people who are belong to the BPL, means below poverty level, okay, those people will kind of like get the grains and things for free. Okay, they have to kind of like show the kind of like a somebody ID, and they will get all the kind of like a grains for free. Okay, yeah, but still, this is kind of like a somebody, the system that we build is kind of like a run by the people. Okay, and not only run by the people, also kind of like a somebody run by the kind of like a ingredient that we have. Example is this thing that ki I am kind of like a poor person, I need a kind of like a bowl of rice. I went to this kind of like a somebody's sarkari ration yojana. Okay, yeah, now they also really required a kind of like a rice na, like basically how this will kind of like a give you when they have nothing. Obviously they really require a stock. Okay, yeah, now that stock will kind of like a fill up by the government, means like that government approval will gonna get, they will get the stock and things like that. Now that approval is kind of like a depends on people, and those people are approval get by the signature and things like that. So basically what I'm trying to tell you, the process actually happened by step, and each step is kind of like a something stopped by 1% to another. And because of this thing happened, the lag of development happened, the way that resources kind of like happen really fast, they will not gonna send that resources that many fast. So that's why kind of like a somebody, we are living in this world where some people have so much amount of food, some people didn't really have food. And this is the reality, by the way, this is kind of like a things. And I'm not kind of like a try to discriminating my country and things like that. No, this is kind of like only every part of the country, and every country, even the developed country, development country, same thing happened. But why is that thing, why is that? Is because of humans nah. Okay, it is because of humans, like okay, if you don't really understand this thing now, let me give you the context. Okay, yeah, go to the Google, search about anything, it kind of like give the information right instantly at the same time. Okay, yeah, now you have to give the experiment. Okay, yeah, now what kind of like experiment that you do? Okay, yeah, you have to be collect the information, okay, regarding about kind of like somebody right to information act. Okay, yeah, like basically is this thing that key, what is actually this kind of like a right to information act, like basically let's just say that key I need a kind of like some information regarding about the government secret project. Or like it's a kind of like somebody very too much. Okay, let's just take a kind of like somebody example regarding about that court. Okay, yeah, or kind of like a things like what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that key getting information on internet is far more easier, quickly and easily as compared to getting the information from real world. Because let me tell you one thing, if I need any kind of like a small information, I have to go to the library. If they have kind of like a particular book regarding about that, then I will get it. If not, then I have to be go to the another library and things and that, and then I will get the information. This is what exactly happened before the internet. But right now we have internet, that whatever the information do I need, I kind of like go to the Google and things like that. How this thing is actually happen is because of Google is a machine. It kind of like have a lot of information at once, so it kind of like suddenly give it to you exactly what you want and very instantly. This is what exactly happened when AI will run the company. Artificial intelligence will run the company. It will understand how much resources do I have, and how do I supposed to use that resources for kind of like the right purposes, or kind of like assembly for the people who really required or not. AI is really good at kind of like assembly understand the kind of like assembly possible scenario. Okay, yeah. Let's just take an example. Is this thing that key there is a kind of like a protest happen, or there is a kind of like a things happen, then basically AI will not gonna understand what is actually protest, what is actually this thing. Okay, yeah. AI is actually programmed by the only one thing, that to maintain the peace and to kind of like assembly give the opportunity for everyone can grow and things and that. Okay, yeah. So basically AI will kind of like do the things. Let's just say that AI is actually programmed to maintain the peace. Okay, yeah. Now protest is kind of like a simply as an act of peace too. Okay, because protest is a kind of like a simply way that people will kind of like express their emotions, express their kind of like rights regarding about the government and things like that. And if the government is actually run by the company, then AI will kind of like simply consider this is a threat, and AI will kind of like do the everything to stop that threat. Now basically what does AI can do is really crazy. Like basically is this thing, if the government thinks that protest is a threat, then what they kind of like do, they will kind of like somebody do the tear gas, throw the tear gas and things like that, so that they would stop the kind of like a mob and things like that, right? But AI will gonna kind of like do something very different. Like basically AI will not understand the human emotions and things, and that it consider that it's a threat. A protest is a threat. So they will kind of like launch the missile, kind of like give the command to fire at the people and things like that. And it was kind of like a very very disaster situation happened, right? Okay, so basically it's this thing na ki the AI, like artificial intelligence, have a kind of like a job to kind of like maintain the peace na, and he actually give the peace. Like he fire the missile, everyone people die, peace, right? Well, yeah, so probably is this thing na ki AI is really good at something, AI is also really bad at something too. Okay, yeah, but still AI is kind of like really good at lot of things. Okay, yeah, like basically let's be optimistic regarding about that. AI is really good at kind of like handling bigger and data. Okay, yeah, countries actually kind of like somebody go through lot of kind of like somebody stuff. Let's just example. Okay, yeah, that key there is a kind of like somebody court case which is kind of like somebody filled with a lot of kind of like somebody backlogs of case and things and that. Okay, who is kind of like give the kind of like somebody the justice and things like that. It is kind of like a way much complicated because it rely on evidence and things and that. If the AI will kind of like somebody handle justice department, they will kind of like treat it very wrongly. Like basically AI will kind of like only focus on evidence, they will not focus on emotions and things and that. And which part is actually giving the more and more evidence, AI will understand that this is kind of like a things that this part is actually telling the truth, another part is actually telling the false, then give the justice for the whoever has a kind of like a have a higher evidence. Then this might be kind of like something really chaos, because justice is actually run by human thoughts and stuff and kind of like somebody intuition and things like that. Okay, like a crime is not just happen just kind of like somebody just no. Okay, there is lot of things actually happen. AI cannot handle the justice department, but AI really handle it kind of like somebody kind of like a find out, figure it out, kind of like what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that key, yes, at some part of thing AI is not really good at that, but at some part of something AI is really good at kind of like a handling bigger datas. Okay, yeah, bigger values, numbers and things like that, and it kind of like somebody show it that number to the people so that they will understand what is actually best for them or not. Like basically is this thing that key Indian government is actually launch a really very good thing. Okay, what is actually good thing? Okay, the people who actually kind of like wanted to establish a businesses in India, we like before we are kind of like really required lot of kind of like some approval from state government, central government, lot of things. Okay, yeah, but yeah, but basically is this thing government actually understand that this is kind of like a somebody very wrong way to kind of like do this thing. And basically the people who wanted to invest in things like that, they will not gonna invest money in the company because there is a lot of approval things and that. So basically Indian government actually realized that this is not really good way, so we need to create such a platform where everyone get all the approval regarding about state government, regarding about central government, regarding about everything. Like basically is this thing, if you have a kind of like a startup idea or kind of like a company that you wanted to establish or things like that, and you have kind of like a significant amount of money so that you would kind of like start investing and started doing business and running like that. So you need like basically government will gonna provide a kind of like a platform that everyone get all the license, all the approval at one place. And this is platform is actually run by the AI, run by the machine and things like that, which is kind of like a very easy and kind of like a way things happen far more easier. So that's why kind of like in India running a business is far more easier. Like basically taxing file or things or that, really good, really great. Okay, yeah, another really good thing about the AI is that digital payment system in India, we are really good at digital payment system. We have UPI, Unified Payment Services, which is kind of like a really good at kind of like a somebody we don't really carry the kind of like a real money and things like that. We have mobile phone, we have kind of like a phone pay, Paytm, Google Pay and things like that, which is actually connected to the bank and stuff like that. So basically if I went to the market, I need a kind of like somebody potato. Okay, yeah, so basically that particular person, that shopkeeper has a kind of like a QR code. I scan that QR code, kind of like a send the money 60 rupees directly on his bank account. He actually get that notification that 60 rupees is actually kind of like a receive from this person. and everything actually happened far more easily, and kind of like I don't really carry the kind of like a money, and another person don't really have any carry the money and things like that, and I kind of like somebody transfer the kind of like a content, and like I get the all the ingredient do I need and stuff like that, which is actually happened by the machine. It is actually happened by the kind of like AI. Okay, so basically is this thing na ki AI is really good at really good things. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you, I'm a bit really optimistic regarding about the AI is actually govern the entire country and things like that. Like basically some of the European country are kind of like started thinking, started optimizing AI workforce in their government. Okay, yeah, at small things, like basically is this thing, that ki humans are also supervise that particular thing, but AI will kind of like handle that all those kind of like a hard work and show it to the humans, and human will supervise every entire data and kind of like a forward and kind of like a make that work bit more efficient and things like that. So basically it is really good. Like basically this is what I'm thinking, that ki most of people actually thought that ki AI is kind of like a somebody destroy the planet and it will kind of like a Terminator thing happen and stuff like that. It will not. Okay, we made this machine and kind of like a somebody is this thing that ki this machine is actually run for us. Okay, yeah, these are kind of like some speculations that we have, like this kind of like a thought process and imagination. Oh yeah, and basically I don't really think that this would gonna happen. I don't really think that. Okay, AI is not a threat. AI is a kind of like basically is this thing. It's not a kind of like a like basically every system, every kind of like a technology that we invented is kind of like a meant for right purposes. Obviously, there are a couple of people who are kind of like using this technology for wrong purposes too. That is true. Yes, that is true. But we have to understand that how do we supposed to use that thing? Make a kind of like a assembly way that kind of like a assembly it add value not only to us, to the other people too. Okay, yeah, obviously there are kind of like some other people are kind of like doing it for wrong purpose and stuff like that. We have to be content those people, we have to be kind of like eliminate those people, or I don't know, whatever you do. Okay, yeah, like I don't know, yeah, like most of people actually think that AI is actually threat is kind of like a taking a job and things like that. No, yeah, it is a kind of like a taking a job, definitely it is that, but it kind of like creates a new opportunity. It create a kind of like a some new way to think like that. AI is a kind of like a part of evolution and we have to accept this thing, dude. Yeah, I don't know, I'm a bit really optimistic regarding about this concept and things like that. Okay, yeah, maybe I'm kind of like completely wrong. Maybe the future might be kind of like a written by the very horrific words and stuff like that. I don't know, but whatever the information that I have and whatever the knowledge and experience and everything that I have, I think that AI is not a threat. I think. All right, all right, this is this then. I'm really tired, I just wanted to sleep, and thank you.